All right, it's even time. I hadn't got much work done today. I've been doing stuff inside the house the last few days. I had reserves this last weekend, didn't get a whole lot of work done. But I had an incident the other day, and I wanted to talk to you a bit about what to do when your risk mitigation fails. Now, if you're in the military, you know what risk mitigation is. We do a lot of risky things. If you're a mechanic working on a shop, you do a lot of not risky things, you do a lot of dangerous things. The thing about dangerous things is there's a risk that you'll get hurt, but if you can minimize the risk of that danger, then you can accomplish that task even with danger. Um, I failed. And this wasn't actually in the shop. This was in the house. I was cutting up some vegetables, and I was being careful to curl my knuckles and cut against that. And as I was moving my hand back, my thumb got out there, and I chopped the end of my thumb off, just a little bit, with a butcher knife. And so, what do you do when you do something like that? If you're working out here in your shop, it's going to happen. You're going to hurt yourself. You're going to cut yourself. You're going to burn yourself, whatever. What do you do then? Well, I immediately grabbed a clean paper towel because I was there in the kitchen, folded it up and stuck it on the wound, and held my thumb elevated with pressure on it, and to try to get it to stop bleeding. Now, I have previously, I cut this thumb several years ago next to the bone. I missed the bone, but cut it all the way through to the thumbnail. And I yelled to my wife that I'd cut my thumb and, I needed to go to the emergency room. She started rounding up the kids. I had a tube of super glue right there. I was going to have some super glue for an example, and I left that in the house. But I took the super glue and I squeezed the cut back together and laid a bead of super glue over that cut, because I had heard that EMTs a lot of time would use super glue to glue wounds back together, and it was safe, and it worked. My wife got mad at me, made me go see the doctor the next day. He took a look at it with the super glue on my thumb and said, "Wow, I can't do anything for you. You did a good job." If you use super glue to seal a cut, it will make a hard crust. It'll take about a week or so to come off, and by that time, your thumb will be mostly healed. What I did yesterday when I chopped the skin on the end of my thumb off, there was no cut to seal back together. And so after an hour of holding pressure on it, keeping it elevated, I pulled back my paper towel and it wasn't stuck to the wound, and the wound was flowing openly. At that point I said, I can't fix this myself. And so I went to urgent care, and they got a special surgical foam that they stuck on the end and wrapped over it, and it stopped the bleeding. So the main things to remember: keep pressure on the wound and elevate it. Put something clean on it to try to keep your fluids in. Several years ago, I pinched off the skin on my thumb, or below my thumb, right in here, using an engine hoist. I won't go into details, but I tore a chunk out, and I wasn't able to seal the wound back. But I wasn't all the way through my skin. It bled really bad, but I put pressure on it, held it, and it stopped bleeding, and I was able to go back to doing work. I actually finished working. I spent another hour wrenching on my car that day after I tore a chunk out of my skin. So, elevate the wound, keep pressure on it, keep it clean, bandage it up, doctor it up, whatever you have to do. If it won't stop bleeding, go get help. Another thing I was thinking about is, a lot of times I'll be out working and I'll get sunburned, or I've got welding burns before from spending a couple hours welding without having the proper gear on. Wear the sleeves or the jacket, the helmet, whatever. But if you get a burn, wash it with cool water. Not wash it, but rinse. If I get sunburned, I'm pale. I sunburn real easy. I'll take a nice cool shower, and I'll put Noxema on the burn. Noxema works wonders for burns. It will take the severity down by a full degree. Now, if you get a 3rd degree burn and your skin's missing, go seek medical help. But I've had a blistered burn before, or a burn that I knew was going to blister, and I put Noxema on it, and it knocked it down to where it was just a 1st degree burn. Noxema works. I would say one of the important things is have a first aid kit out in your shop. And I was going to get my first aid kit out and show it to you, and I realized I never brought it out from the garage when I moved my workshop out here. So I don't have a first aid kit in my shop. If I hurt myself, I'm going to be grabbing a dirty rag until I can get into the house. So Be mindful of that. Keep that stuff handy. You'll want to have stuff on hand at your house. If you can get some betadine or some Bactine or some kind of antiseptic to clean your wound, you need bandages, band-aids. If you got kids, you got band-aids. Bandages are a good idea though. I have, whenever I went to the urgent care, they gave me another spool of this stuff. I had some already, but I brought this out here to show. You want bandage material handy. I have had a clean rag before that I wrapped over a wound and used duct tape on it, but that's temporary until you can get in the house. You don't want to go to the grocery store to buy this stuff because you didn't have it on hand and have your thumb duct tape, so if the cashier looks at you funny like you're stupid. So stock up on some of this stuff. You should, if you're going to be out here in the shop, you get a first aid kit, it'll have most of these things in it. If you can have aspirin on hand, if you smack your head on something or your thumb on something, take an aspirin, and that'll take some of the pain away. So think ahead on this stuff, plan what you're going to do, and remember, if you're bleeding, apply pressure, elevate the wound, and if it doesn't stop bleeding, if you're all the way through the layers of skin, it's not going to stop bleeding. Go seek medical care. If it's just a skin wound and you're not all the way through and it's just bleeding, usually the applying pressure, keeping it elevated, will stop the bleeding. That's your main thing to remember though. Elevate it, keep pressure on it until it stops bleeding. If you don't have bandages handy, you don't have a rag handy, cover it with your hand until you get inside the house. So take care of yourself. Hopefully you don't have these kind of problems.